What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Flexwork podcast. This is Ludwig Arroyo here today, and we have a really special guest, someone that works in government, someone that's doing great work for our country and for the world. He's a CEO and founder of Nomadics, Nick D'Ambrosio. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I know Morristown's not a ways away, but my understanding, you're a really, really busy guy.
Yes.
and you deal with some big, important things. And so I want to get into that, but I want to really get to the bottom of who you are and where you come from and what young Nick D'Ambrosio was thinking about that got him here to, working as a GIS specialist.
So, what young Nick was thinking about was, girls, and cars, and having a rock band and things like that. But,
Right.
I didn't start getting into, I got into defense entirely by accident. That was not what I set the company out to do. When I was in college, I was working for an environmental engineering firm in South Orange. So I was an environmental engineering assistant with a bent towards GIS, basic geographic.
Is this at NJIT, Seton Hall?
This is at Seton Hall in 2004.
Okay.
And so I learned ecological work, environmental, haz waste, wetland delineations, threatened endangered species studies, and I was doing a lot of the basic GIS at the time. And if anybody's a GIS nut, that's ArcView 3.2. So anybody's going to have segmentation violation nightmares, I understand. So it was very basic mapping at the time.
Yeah.
And it was in for environmental permitting with NJDEP and regulatory compliance for development, residential development at the time. And
EPA stuff.
DEP, but EPA on the go. So NJDEP is the state level of Department of Environmental Protection. The US EPA is the federal level.
Federal level, yeah.
And so I started my company not long after college doing this kind of work. I was working for another firm full time and was paying very close attention to what was changing in the rules and regulations and the way companies were doing business. And what I really wanted was to do things my way. And I knew early on I was a lousy employee. The whole 8:30 to 5:30 mentality didn't really work for me. But I'll still work 16-hour days. It doesn't matter to me. But I had decided early in life what I wanted my life to look like at the tail end and just started working backwards. How do you get to that point? And that was, if I wanted a schedule that looks like mine now, as busy as I am at 43, married with 2 children, I still am the master of my own schedule. Now, I'm working all the time, but I can take my kids to daycare and not be on a schedule like my wife is. She's got to be at school at a certain time. I can take the kids whenever. Right. And I can stop what I'm doing to go pick them up if they're sick. And I usually have a lot of flexibility. The problem is then that there's no boundaries. And there's no delineation between you're working and you're not working. Right. So my schedule is like nailing Jell-O to a tree.
Yeah, of course.
So young Nick was thinking, how do I engage myself in the long term, step by step by step, to get to a point where my schedule is my own and I am making the kinds of income that we need to have the ability to give my wife, a lengthy maternity leave. And so working with those objectives backwards led me to where I am now.
But even still, even that you say that, that's not a natural progression to go from.
Oh, no.
Right? Even having that thought, how do you end up at, was there a passion at a young age for geography and mapping? And, did it start back then? Because, when what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a police officer, a firefighter. I don't want to be in Nomadics.
Oh, no. What I want to be when I grow up is retired. If I could make money watching cartoons with my kids all day, I would do that.
Yeah,
if I could get paid enough money to paint, which I don't do well, but if people were willing to buy it, sure. I've also written a book, and I want to write more when I retire because that's what I really enjoy. I love what I do. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I didn't wake up one morning, and I don't think anybody can ever actually do this and say, I want to be a federal defense contractor. That's not how it happens.
Yeah.
I started the company not long after college, doing the thing that I was interested in doing because I knew people would pay me to do it. Yeah. Doing GIS. And I learned when I was in college, working for my employer at the time, John Thonay in South Orange, I always loved running around the woods as a kid. I was always that kid that was picking up frogs and bringing them home, begging my parents to let me keep it, and picking up sticks and thinking I was the Ninja Turtles, all that jazz. But then I learned in college that you can get paid for this. And so here I am running around the woods, picking up snakes and being paid for it.
Right.
Fantastic. And that's kind of how the passion started. But I also saw, working for John at the time, how he ran his company. And he ran it with a lot of compassion, a lot of empathy. His big zeal was doing the right thing the first time. Now, being a small firm, he was never the least expensive. Being a small firm, we are far from the least expensive, but the work is always of the best quality. It's that magic triangle of business, fast, right, cheap, but you can only pick two.
Yeah, right.
And so
Can't do it fast and right and be cheap.
Exactly.
Right.
Good work ain't cheap and cheap work ain't good. So I really just kind of worked towards what was going to give me the most flexibility, and that was academia, that was business, that was teaching, what was going to get me to the goal the fastest. It just happened to be things that I was interested in and got good at doing, which over time, if you want to hear the entire story of how we got from doing ecological work into defense, it was entirely by accident.
As it many times is.
And it usually is. And so my father would always say, you follow the money. If the United States military thinks we're smart, is going to give us money to do things, I'm not going to dissuade them from doing that. And I'm not going to disillude them that we're not smart.
Right.
And that's how we've kind of gotten to this point. And here we are 20 years later as defense and engineering and geospatial intelligence specialists, subject matter experts in naval unmanned combat and Army weapons prototyping and servicing.
It's when I was doing some background work on you, it's fascinating how you're at the forefront of a lot of what's going on in the world as we speak. But even in the beginning, you were BP oil spill, right? You were on the ground. Talk to me a little bit about that environment and how that impacted you and your company. God.
So a number of things about the BP spill. So first off, I was there entirely on accident.
Okay.
I was going through a divorce at the time, and a friend of mine was supposed to go as an ecologist. And Dr. Amy Soley, very good friend of mine, she was married with kids that were young, and I was not married with no kids. I had a dog. And she couldn't go, so she recommended that I go in her place. And I knew ecology, GIS, hazardous waste, health and safety, construction. I was an ideal candidate to go down there. And so when I arrived, somebody got a hold of my resume and saw that I was more well exposed than just an ecologist. And I could do all these other things, GIS and health and safety and training and hazardous waste removal and. And I got moved from a number of forward operating facilities to command post, a unified command, for a period of 6 months.
Wow.
Now, the thing about the BP spill that everybody really needs to keep in mind, and I used to teach an entire course on this, is that the BP spill was the largest man-made accidental environmental catastrophe in modern history.
Right.
As opposed to when Saddam Hussein dumped a bunch of barrels of oil in the Red Sea. That was man-made, intentional.
Yeah.
So the BP spill was the incident command protocol for that was based on the Valdez, which happened in the 80s as a point source, limited quantity release at the surface, as opposed to the BP spill, which was a mile below sea level, an unlimited quantity because the Tiber Plateau hadn't been quantified yet. And you had a mile's worth of water column for that oil to disperse in. And it just impacted 5 state coastlines. So the incident command protocol of Valdez time, which was barely adequate at the time, was stretched beyond capacity for something like this.
Antiquated at best.
Antiquated at best and haphazard and catastrophic at worst.
Wow.
And so I was part of the group that was writing the new rules as we were going along, incorporating new GIS capabilities and strategy that when I arrived, they were still using Google Earth, KML, KMZ, and were just dumping all kinds of data into Google Earth. And I ran into command screaming my head off, you can't do this.
Right.
Well, why? Well, because Alphabet, Google is going to own all this information. You use their platform, it's theirs now.
Yeah.
Well, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is that this is going to be a civil and criminal case because people died. Said, so this is going to qualify as evidence. And command kind of looked at me and was like,
oh, yeah.
Fix it. Figure it out and fix it. So we started implementing. I was part of a much larger team implementing. At the time was cutting edge, but today it flies like a brick kind of GIS and geospatial intel work that was spread across 5 state coastline, 40,000 respondent operators, people that needed a harmonious language to make predictions where the oil was going to make landfall, how do you respond, how do you prevent, how do you clean up. it was a lot of data to move all the time.
So one of the things I learned today in doing some research is how data driven this is all, and then on top of that, software, tech.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, was that something that you learned and you built, or did you bring people in to help you build and to aggregate all this data into some sort of, I guess, is it nomadic software?
It's a little of column A, a little of column B. That the platform that we use is Esri GIS. So we're a bronze member or silver member, whatever the hell it is. It is the most ubiquitous GIS software that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a multinational, multi-billion-dollar firm themselves, and we've been integrated with them, like I said, all the way from ArcView 3.2. This is going back 25 years.
Oh, wow.
And there are people that we associate with that go even further back than that.
Wow.
And so the work that we do now, so there are two sides of the house. There's a defense engineering, and then there's the GIS work, the data-driven side. And a lot of our clients in the private sector will bring us in to develop specific GIS IP for them.
Mm.
And we usually build it in Esri's platform so that, again, being ubiquitous, it can go from here to there without much of a change. A lot of it's dummy AI work, algorithm development, query development, data management, portal development, and pushing out to them the specific IP that they've requested from us.
Mm-hmm.
5G urban implementation planning, fiber optic cable laying, LEED certified building development and outlays. And so in certain circumstances, it's software development. Other cases, it's data development and delivery. We always bring in, if there's something we can't do in-house, we bring in the best folks we can get our hands on. And being in business for 20 years with relationships in just about every defense and government agency you can think of, we got friends everywhere.
Right.
And so we're very fortunate that we're able to bring in the folks that we need. But it always comes back to the data. And the same thing with the engineering aspect of the work that we do. If the testing and evaluation of a particular prototype that we developed comes back corrupted, inconclusive, we got to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
So it's systems critical to ensure that the data that we're collecting is good enough to be able to run the necessary modeling for the next iteration.
That takes me to, at some point in the mid-teens, the mid-aughts, you did a little bit of teaching at Montclair.
I did. Well,
not at Montclair, at Morris County College.
Oh, many.
So
I taught for 10 years at 5 or 6 different institutions, and I'm always going to forget them. I'm going to get them out of order. Passaic County Community, Rutgers, Seton Hall, NJIT, Montclair, and Morris County Community.
Right.
And I'm almost positive I forgot one, and I got them entirely out of order. But I taught at 6 different schools for about 10 years. A litany of different courses at the graduate and undergraduate level.
And why did you get into that, and why aren't you still doing it?
Like all things, somebody got a hold of me and said, "Nick, I need your help." And I said, "Sure, why not?" I always wanted to teach. And so I did. It wasn't something that I got into until I was asked to do it. And then I found that I really liked being the center of attention with a captive audience for 3 hours that can't go anywhere. And they have to listen to my stories, and they have to laugh at my jokes.
And they have to learn
and they
what
have
you're
to
saying.
learn. I would make deals with my students all the time. Like, I'm not going to make you learn the nitrogen cycle. I'm not going to test you on the nitrogen cycle because I hate the nitrogen cycle. But if you all promise that you're going to read the nitrogen cycle, we'll skip this section. And every hand would go up. Yes. Okay, great.
That's a good one.
So I stopped teaching in 2020 before COVID became a thing. We were already well underway of being parents. So our first was born late 2020. We were pregnant before COVID came along. So he's not a COVID baby, although people make the leap that he is.
Yeah.
But I also saw the writing on the walls for a number of different things. One, the business in 2019 had crossed the $1 million threshold. We were above a dozen people. And so my attention really needed to be focused on that kind of response because before COVID in 2020, at the beginning, we saw a 300% increase in our revenue from 19 to 20.
Wow.
So it was going to really need my attention.
And that was just by chance, not having to do with, because I know in 2020 and 2021, then came COVID, and you actually got involved with COVID.
That's a separate story.
Prior to COVID, your business just tripled.
Yeah. We were already in really great shape before COVID, and then COVID really tanked a few things. But I saw that we were going to become parents. I needed to be focused on that and the business. And teaching something needed to give.
Got it.
And a decade in teaching, I've been given Environmental Professor of the Year in 2014. I've been published a number of times. I've had somewhere between 500 and 600 students by that point. I think I've had done a lot of what I wanted to do in that space. But the other part of it was that the landscape of the educational system was changing, and the students themselves were just not the way they were in 2010. And I saw this gradual change in entitlement and attitude and aptitude that became more of a slog for me, the instructor, especially teaching undergrad classes in the evenings when nobody really wants to be there, to be perfectly honest. It became a real challenge. And so I saw a real demarcation between the undergrad students and the grad students, and those using their GI Bill to go to school, undergrad, those folks really wanted to be there.
Yeah.
It was the other ones that were just, I'm here because my parents made me. And I thought taking your class in environmental would be easy. No, let me dispel that notion. Environmental is not easy.
Right.
And so, it became a real slog. And then there was changes with the administrations at all these schools. And I saw a lot of it being, it's financially driven. School's a business like everything else, I understand. But in one specific institute, I had 5 different bosses, none of which had taught a course, giving me instructions how to teach a course. And I said, that's not going to work here.
So is that because it seems like just from our little conversation earlier before we started the podcast that you're not a guy that really likes to be deal with bosses. You're an autonomous type of person.
Yes,
and then having a boss, especially one that hasn't gone through even what you're going through, to tell you what to do is just not something that flies with you.
Yes and no. It's so as an entrepreneur, a business owner, I have the most bosses. All of my clients are my bosses.
That's right.
So there's that. But then the work that we do, that I specifically do for the U.S. Navy, there are a couple of captains that I report to. That kind of directive, that kind of boss, it's a different MO than, because these fellows have gone through it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the instances, especially with clients, they're coming to me for my help.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, Nick, I need you to do X, but I trust you to do it in the way that needs to be done.
Right.
In this circumstance, that was not the case. And, I'm all for constructive criticism. If I don't know something, I'll be the first to ask. Receiving guidance is important. But it's really hard to wrap your head around a couple of bean counters, someone from legal, and a couple of mid-management folks, none of which have ever taught a course, let alone an environmental graduate level course, telling you the best way to teach an environmental graduate course.
Yeah.
And that's really hard.
That makes sense.
As opposed to, say, Captain Allen or Captain Peters, Nick, I need you to do this way because I'm telling you to. I trust their judgment that this is the way it needs to be done.
Yeah. So that brings you into 2020. And obviously everything that went on with COVID was horrific and many people died. How did you see your company could make an impact on the COVID side?
First and foremost, the most important thing was to keep everybody gainfully employed. That was my biggest concern. And we didn't lose anybody during COVID, so we were very lucky.
That's great.
But we were also very fortunate that because at the time we had an environmental and construction division and we had our defense and GIS division, the GIS and defense and engineering is what kept us going. All of our environmental and construction fell by the wayside, which when no one's building and no one's lending and no one's moving, there's no reason for that. The work that we ended up doing for COVID once again came about by accident, where I was tasking my people with whatever I could think of to keep them busy. And we started coming up with R&D projects and just something to keep them going while we figured out what was going to happen outside. And what our R&D staff came up with, our director of R&D, Jose Carrillo, came up with at the time was Project Broad Street, which was a dummy AI for COVID case management. Because Jose is a very cerebral, brilliant R&D lead, he was already out looking at where the deficiencies were because he lives in Florida, we live in New Jersey, and there was so much misinformation, disinformation, just data gaps. He was looking for how to make it much more harmonious as part of an R&D project to keep everybody paid and busy. And now Jose and I both read the same book when we were doing our masters, Dr. John Snow and the Curious Case of the Broad Street Pump,
Okay.
which was the very first time that mapping and data was used to map out a cholera outbreak or an outbreak at all.
Oh, okay.
So Jose and I, both being GISPs and we met on the BP
Ding.
spill. We came up with this brilliant plan of how to map out COVID case management using some of the lessons from that book. And it turns out cholera was being spread by a water line being broken next to a cesspit. And cholera spread that way because so they mapped out where everyone was getting it from, and it all led back to one single pump. So Jose led his team and developed the Broad Street Dummy AI, which we then got in contact with folks at the White House in the first Trump administration, and we made friends with folks at the CDC, Chief of Staff and Deputy Chief of Staff, and we presented them with this ready-made, tailorable thing that they could use, and they loved it. So they started putting us in front of state agencies to push this out the door, and we had a few states pick it up and use us to do that kind of work because they had nothing. And some states were still using Excel sheets or 3-ring binders for case management. And then as it went further along, and once the vaccines were out, or at least they were on their way, we were tapped again to come up with, okay, well, what are we going to do for vaccine management and logistics and FEMA grant compliant management? And we came up with a secondary dummy AI that we called Project Sure Shot.
Sure Shot, yeah.
Which is, if anyone's a Beastie Boys fan, that's where we got the name.
Oh, that's great.
So, but it was also, we came up with all kinds of fun project names in that. We have Project Thor, Project Sinclair. And so we had these two AIs running simultaneously off of Esri's platform with portals that were updated 24 hours a day that customers could utilize to see real-time data.
So how are you be able to aggregate this type of information? You got HIPAA concerns, right? Of who's getting?
So HIPAA is not, for the lay folks, HIPAA is a very broad umbrella, but it's actually, if I understand it correctly, physician-to-physician data sharing. That you can't do. So what we were doing was replacing all of the individuals that we were exposed to with random generated numbers to associate them with an ID. And what the states that we were reporting to were more interested in is the demographic, the location, the race, the age, what vaccine they received, what dose they received, where they received it, when they received it. And that kind of data is easy to aggregate if you pull it in from all the right places.
Gotcha.
And they needed that information to report back to FEMA for grant compliance, have monies released, on and on and on. And then there was, hospital bed availability. There was also surges in need and deficiencies that were easily identified.
That was part of your
all of that.
Wow.
And so we were able to, because we have done this kind of work before with Verizon and SHI, where replacing their gold data with their proprietary IP information, their very protected info, with randomly generated information, because we don't really care. It was more important for us to give the state the information that they did need.
Yeah.
If John Smith and his wife, received this shot, this, that, and the other, that's all the state needed to know. They didn't need to know that John Smith was the actual name.
Yeah, right. And so much good work you're doing at this point that's impacting lives. Was there ever a time where your company and Nomadics and all the data that you guys use and the systems that you use to predict, whether it's hurricanes or so weather mapping as well is involved in this?
Oh, yeah. We've done a lot of work on fire prediction, wildfire prediction. We were brought in for the California wildfires a few years ago. And because we were environmentalists first.
Right.
Weather patterns and wind movement is one part of it. We would also take a look at hydric soils and drought conditions, and we'd take a look at ecological conditions, specific plants that were more fire resistant or more fire prone, areas that had received a lot of rainfall versus a little bit of rainfall. And we were able to make, not perfect, but at least somewhat decent predictions where fire could be seen or where fires could spread. Now, of course, this is not taking into account the lone cigarette butt from somebody who's not paying attention, or the campfire that's gone out of control. But adding in additional factors, going all the way back to our ecological and environmental days, really did help add in additional dimension and depth to what these predictive models would give us. Now, nothing was ever going to be as 99.7% accurate like you would like, but it was trustworthy enough to deploy resources in advance so you could have controlled burns in addition to what U.S. Forestry, Wildlife
Right.
Services were already putting out there. And in some cases, our data matched theirs, so it was helpful to have confirmation and verification. We would also make recommendations where other areas could be inspected at their behest as well.
Right. So how does that now lead you into working with defense, weapons,
So
great manufacturing, right? Or at least engineering?
starting with the BP spill, which really is how we got into this. BP was EPA, the Coast Guard, Air Force, and FEMA. In addition to that, because we were supporting five different states that were impacted, you're dealing with 5 different states' environmental departments, 5 different states' academic and nonprofits, environmental and tribal. You're dealing with all the county executives. You're dealing with all of the municipality folks. And so just that project alone, we were interfacing with dozens of different government agencies at all 4 levels: federal, state, county, local. And then you're also interfacing with the tribal folks. You're interfacing with the academia that's involved, the nonprofits.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of data to management, and you're also speaking a lot of different languages.
And are you the point person? Are you the guy on the ground that is being pulled in every direction, or do you have like a team of people that?
It depends. So for BP, this was my first real foray into it. So I learned as I went. I was not the point person by any stretch of the imagination for quite a while, with the exception of when I was at command, handling the very specific thing that I was doing, which was ecological oversight.
Okay.
Then I was getting yelled at all the time.
Right,
when I was on the Exxon spill the following year, I was in a unique position between planning and operations because I spoke both languages of ecological, environmental, and hazardous waste cleanup. So thank you, sir. Again, I get yelled at all the time. So for the Exxon spill, there again, because it was limited to just Montana, you're dealing with EPA, Montana DEP, or whatever the acronym actually is. Again, FEMA, but there was also Bureau of the Interior, Fish and Wildlife, Forestry, because the Yellowstone River, where it was the Silvertip response, also connected to Yellowstone Park. So there was a huge concern about how that was going to be impacted. What was nice, it was flowing the other way, so not a big deal.
Right.
But as time has gone on, the amount of agencies that we interface with, if we're talking just the federal level, there's obviously the U.S. Army, the U.S. Navy, but there's also ONR, the Office of Naval Research.
All the departments within those.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So, at the broad scope, it's DOD, Department of Defense, and Department of State. Then there's U.S. Army and U.S. Navy. And then there's ONR, ONI, ODNI, NAVC, NAVC-05. There's NAVFAC, NAVSUP, Army Corps of Engineers, HHS, CDC, Homeland Security, FEMA, USDA, like I said, Bureau of the Interior, Forestry, Fish and Wildlife. And for Army, there's RDEC, METSI, WESIC. There's just, the list just goes on and on and on. I mean, after a while, you get used to the acronyms. There's just so many of them.
Of course. It sounds like you just spinning them off out the top of your head.
But and that's just because that's what you're used to.
Yeah.
So a lot of the work that we did and do for the Navy, for example, is for Newark Newport out of Newport, Rhode Island, for NAVC-05 5th Fleet out of CENTCOM over in Bahrain. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's just, my wife and I, when she and I were dating, was like, what is all? I thought you were an environmentalist.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
So, but that's just at the federal level. Then when you're doing work with all the states, we've done work in the state of Kansas, New Jersey, South Carolina, Maryland, Delaware, Florida. They all have all of their departments. And so if you're doing a statewide project, you're also interfacing with their counties, their municipalities, Louisiana, the parishes. And so it's just a wild amount of regulations you have to adhere to.
Were you ever involved? I know Katrina. Does Katrina predate you?
Yes. Okay. I wasn't involved in Katrina, although I knew we were part of what came after Katrina. All the work we did for BP was based on pre-Katrina data, which was useless because everything had changed.
Yeah.
So we were part of the post-Katrina work, part of BP, getting new information into the system.
And structural engineering, anything like that involved?
Some of it, but I'm not a structural engineer. But the work we've done with the Army Corps has been building, demolishing, renovating, refurbishing a variety of facilities around the nation.
Whenever a national catastrophe of some sort hits our shores, whether it's an earthquake or whether it's a hurricane, floods, BP oil spill, these are things that really are important to our country and the people that are experiencing them. And we always think about the people that are going in there to save the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you and your company are kind of at the forefront of that, at the very least, planning and implementing. But it sucks when things go wrong. That's kind of when you really get to know those players behind the curtain, right?
I have to tell you, most of the time, and my leadership team, they'll tell you that we're always called in when things have already gone sideways. And that's, we're known for being
cleanup.
Just fix it. And again, this is where we're not the cheapest by any stretch of the imagination, but we get it right.
Yeah.
And that's again been in business for 20 years. We've been called in on emergencies once things have already gone so far awry that we're cleaning up messes and building the new. So we always compare it to building your wings on the way down.
Yeah.
And it's what's had a lot of our customers call us back over and over and over again, full well knowing that we're going to eat their entire budget.
Yeah.
But it gets done, and it gets done right so that everybody's getting what they need. Because you can't make good decisions with lousy data. And
right.
Like all systems, ours, it's garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And so if the data that you're putting into the system for making decisions is outdated or corrupted or incomplete, or it's just not giving you the full picture, and you're able to pull in sources from other places to fill in the gaps, you're getting a much more clear understanding of what's happening, boots on the ground. Now, being, again, formerly environmental and construction, we've had our hands in the dirt, physically doing the work. And the same goes for disaster responses and restoration and building of new facilities and correcting of old facilities. And so there is not a disconnect on the real world applicability of what it is we're doing in the lab. And that's what really makes us unique, is that there's, for the disaster response work, BP, Hurricane Irma, the list goes on, we know what it's like to physically be out there.
Yeah.
We've done it. And we usually bring in, the hires that we bring in have to have some kind of fieldwork aptitude to be able to understand what's happening inside. There are people that are far better at this software than we are.
Yeah.
That can make the software get up and dance and do some of the most incredible things you've ever seen it do. But if you take them outside, they don't know how that connects to that.
Yeah.
And that is where the disconnect happens. We call that the fallout. We look to minimize the fallout between what the data is telling us and what it means for the real world.
Because this is life and death, essentially, at the end of the day,
truly.
in many respects.
Well, and a lot. So for Hurricane Irma is a great example. We were responsible for over 8,000 residential claimant cases to make sure that they got the money that they needed to either restore, rebuild their homes, or just rehome them elsewhere. And so people were depending on us to get it right so that they could get the money that they needed from FEMA to get back to their lives.
That's one of those scenarios where you have to get it right. You have to get it fast, right? All those things that we talked about earlier, you have to do all three,
right?
You know, are there any misconceptions about the private sector that rub you the wrong way or that you disagree with? You know, when people talk about private contractors and government, it's typically not a.
We're a 60-40 split. 60% of our work comes from government, 40% comes from the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
And, of that 60%, 30 is federal and defense, and 30 of it is state, county, local, academic, nonprofit. And then the other 40% comes from large clients like Verizon and Colliers and Google and SHI. And then there's a whole smattering of smaller engineers that we support with our specific kind of work. As far as private sector misconceptions go, nothing's ever been brought to my attention. Okay. I hear about it from time to time from friends of mine that are, how could you be an environmentalist and also a weapons specialist? Right. And those two things are a little hard to marry.
Yeah.
But as far as the misconceptions go about the private sector, I'm employing a lot of people. Yeah. I'm happy to pay them well. I'm happy that I can give them jobs. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
Now I get to do the work that I love as well, but
And along the way, you're helping people, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when it comes to administrations, and I want to speak just broadly, can an administration, you're dealing with changes every 4 years, in some cases.
Some cases every 2.
Every 2 years. Exactly. So how does that affect your work from one presidency to another, from one governor to another, and how so?
So, first off, we embody Semper Gumby, ever flexible.
Semper Gumby.
You have to be. You have to be. And that's why being a small firm like us allows us to be small, flexible, nimble, and responsive.
How big is your company?
25 people.
Okay.
At least that's, I think. We're going through another hiring surge now. So, but we've always embodied tight, controlled growth. So it's been easier to maneuver than a lot of our larger competitors out there. That's like moving a drunken dinosaur. We need to make changes. So when it comes to administration changes, we always look to get to know the candidates, get to know their policies, get to know their plans on both sides as far in advance as we possibly can, and then plan accordingly for whomever eventually takes over. What we've seen in past presidencies and governors and even municipalities, mayors and county executives, is that it does take a while for the policies to be signed off on, implemented, enacted, and responded to. So there's always a tail to all of that. But being a small company like us, we are able to respond a lot faster. Excuse me. But it's just par for the course. And it's my job as the CEO to see these things coming and do what I can to plan accordingly. No, you're always going to be surprised by things. That's why you have to have a book of business and a cash reserve and so on. But it's always going to be something. And as soon as you can just come to grips with that, then the better off you'll be.
Yeah. So is it one of those things that where you may have a contract in place through 2024 with one administration, and then the new one comes in and they just clean house and end all contracts for your work, and you got to find business elsewhere? Does stuff like that happen?
Happens all the time.
Yeah. Even on a local level too, I'm sure. Got it. And in that case, you just pivot and. Well,
that's why. So again, we're very lucky that we've got a good healthy split between the private sector work and the government work. The government work these are usually multi-year contracts, and you're not going to get rich on these things. You're talking profit margin between 9 and 12%. What's nice about them is that they can be 3, 5, 7 years long, and so you can somewhat set your watch to it.
Yeah.
And under normal circumstances, those monies are already accounted for and out the door. And unless you really screw up or there's a dramatic change in administration, those contracts are going to continue because the work still needs to get done and it was approved long before. And in circumstances where things like that do get cut, because we spend a lot of time doing work for the private sector where our profit margins are 30 to 35%, we're able to swing from one back and forth, as we've done many, many times over the years, and be able to balance it out.
Got it.
That's the benefit of being small and having very, very talented people who are multifaceted. And we've had to pivot engineers to doing GIS and data managers to doing basic engineering data support. So we've been lucky. We've been very, very lucky. But it's also, luck is when preparation opportunity
meets opportunity. Yeah.
Right. So we're always redoing our 5-year plan every single year.
Makes sense.
So
are there, let's pivot over to business, and you're an entrepreneur. Essentially, you're a small business owner, 25 employees. At what point is marketing a big focus for you?
Right now.
And how do you market in this world?
So
GISP.
If you look at our website, nomadics.com, nomadics.com, we've been in business for 20 years. Any layperson looking at our website is going to look at it and read it and go, I don't understand what I'm looking at. It reads like it does. It reads like 1980s.
I think we had that experience yesterday with one of my engineers.
Truly.
Yeah.
and truly, this is, even post-environmental, it's even worse than it used to be. So our website and our marketing material are for clients who are self-identifying.
Yeah.
They know who they are. They know what they're looking for by the time they get to us. For us, it's the golden referral. And most of our business has come from clients calling us up. I got your name from so-and-so. I got a problem. I need you to fix it. They said you can do that. And for 20 years, we've been able to really kind of rely on that.
Yep.
And again, reading our website, it's like 1980s stereo instructions. You don't know what you're looking at, but the people who do know see the things that they need to see, pick up the phone and call us.
It speaks to a particular client.
Really and truly.
Yeah.
And now that we are in a very pivotal place in our development, we're, again, 20 years old. We're looking at going public. We are passing that critical phase of we're looking from going to 7 figures into 8 figures. We're at 24 people. We're looking at going up to 36 or more.
Yeah.
The need for marketing, the need for outreach, the need for engagement and endorsement and has become a central driving factor for my marketing department to yell at me on a daily basis to get out there. So as you've seen lately, I'm on more podcasts. We were recently awarded from Morris County in June. MSN Faces of 2025.
Faces of 2025, yeah.
So
I saw that.
And now we are leveraging a lot of our political capital, inviting, I still have to call Senator Booker and Senator Kim's office. That's on my to-do list for today. Guys, if you're listening, I'm going to call.
Oh, yeah. We actually reached out to them, Senator Kim, to get him on the podcast
and
as well.
Good people, man.
Yeah.
He's good people. But we're reaching out to all the folks and inviting them to the office for meet and greets and meet the staff and do little photo ops and so on so that people can see that there's more of us out there. The marketing aspect is very important now. The BD, the in-person face-to-face, is still just as important now as it was 20 years ago. And that's what led us to build the practice in Washington that we opened the office up 22 or 23. My father, he was VP of marketing and sales for 35 years when he could sell ice to an Eskimo.
Yeah.
And one day, it was in the late stages of COVID, he's on the floor playing with my firstborn, who was an infant at the time, and we're talking about how to grow the business. And he goes, I got to tell you, my dad doesn't know what I do. He knows what I do, but he doesn't know what I do.
Yeah.
He's like, no one's going to beat a path to your living room in Morristown, New Jersey from Washington. If you want business there, you need to go there.
You got to go there, yeah.
So I started taking the Acela down every Tuesday.
Stop it.
Almost a year. And I would meet with whomever would meet with me that day. It didn't matter. I would call up friends. I would call everybody and just make friends.
Yeah.
And we eventually developed enough FaceTime to open a location there. Great. I can't tell you how many meetings I missed out on because the folks couldn't figure out Teams or Zoom or anything else.
Oh, man, yeah.
And so as soon as I said, I'm going to be in Washington. Oh, Nick, that's great. Why don't you come by the office when you get here?
Yeah.
And so there is no substitute for the face-to-face, but you have to now follow it up with the marketing. And if we do, in fact, go public, potential investors and shareholders are going to want to see, what are you doing on the greater stage? At 20 years old, we really should be doing more of this. And thankfully, now that we've got a very robust team, we've pivoted and made a lot of organizational changes. Yeah. I don't need to be in the captain's chair every single minute of every single day. I can do things like this that further drive more business to us.
Did you at all consider moving to DC as permanently and relocating from Jersey? What keeps you in Jersey, by the way?
I mean, my wife's got a phenomenal pension for starters.
Okay. She's a teacher.
She's a teacher.
Okay.
All of our family is here. As expensive New Jersey is, I'm a Jersey boy.
Yeah.
I like it here a lot. There was a period of time earlier in my life when I was single and not doing a whole lot of work in Jersey. I'm like, I'll move to wherever the Navy needs me. Yeah. I almost got moved to Rhode Island permanently. I almost got moved to Bahrain permanently. We've thought about moving to Washington, but the heat and humidity, no thanks. Plus, we've already put our roots down here. We've got the house. We've got the townhouse. The kids are in school. My wife's commutes 3 miles.
Can't beat that.
You can't beat it. So, we like New Jersey enough to stay.
And in terms of working with folks down in DC, and is that something that is part of your week, day to day?
Oh my God, yes.
So you have an office down there.
Yep.
Someone else runs that. That sounds like a grueling. I mean, being that there's lobbyists down there and you're vying for people's attention. How do you guys, cut through that noise?
We've had private equity approach us twice now, asking to acquire us. I said, why? Well, you're in defense. Defense makes money. Do you know how defense makes money? No. Okay, well, this is not for you.
Right.
This, like a lot of industries, is all relationship driven. People do business with those that they know, like, and trust. And that takes a lot of time to develop. And so, yes, there are high-paid lobbyists out there, but a lot of our business comes from a lot of the handshakes that we make. And a lot of that's me. And so it's not necessarily cutting through the noise. It's handing the potential customer the easy button that we know that they need. And it's spending a lot of time with the potential customer, developing the relationship, finding out what the pain points are, looking, deep into the future as to what problems are coming and preparing a solution for them way in advance.
Sales 101.
Yeah. Again, my old man.
Yeah.
So it's spending a lot of time developing the relationships with people that is going to matter, not today, maybe not even be next year, but years from now.
Yeah.
And
Planting
so,
seeds.
case in point, the work we're currently doing at Picatinny, which started in 24, we were prepping that in 22.
Mm.
The Navy win that we got in 21 as a prime, we started prepping at 19.
Wow.
So you have to be always forward thinking. And so grueling is putting it mildly. It does take a toll. It does take a toll on one's marriage if you're not careful. It does take a toll on your kids if you're not careful. And so you need to spend that much more time making sure the home bases are covered and being present and being a good parent and being a good husband and, doing all the things that still need to be done, even if a secondary part of your brain is still processing working.
Yeah. Yeah, that's obviously a difficult thing to do for type A personalities that are out there trying to drive business, but you're at home and you're trying to spend time with the kids or at the soccer field, right? Or what have you. And you're really trying to stay locked in at work and make sure that you're productive, but also lock in at home. It's always a challenge.
It is. But if it was easy, everybody would do it.
That's right.
And so, there's something to be said about being, a split personality, multitasking. My wife makes fun of me all the time. I'm usually, with our infant, I'm like throwing him around the house and I'm playing on the floor with our preschooler and singing the Transformers theme song. But then, Captain Peters will call or Captain Allen will call. And she says, you snap to attention and you pick up the phone and you're very quiet. It's very yes or no, sir.
Yeah.
And then you hang up the phone and then you take a bunch of notes and then you disappear for a little while. She goes, but you just get used to it.
You got to compartmentalize.
Really and truly.
So you deal in politics a lot. Well, you're dealing in government a lot, and that's a big part of your business. Would you say 60%?
Yep.
On the contractor side, on the on that side. So, have you ever gotten bitten by the bug to even throw your hat in the ring to be a senator or a congressman or anything of that nature?
So, if the camera's on, you can see me nodding emphatically. My wife is going to want me to say no because she doesn't want to be the wife of a politician. But the deal we have is that I'm allowed to accept an appointment.
Okay.
When I was circling the White House in 22, I was interviewing for a position with the White House National Security Council. I was interviewed by the Senate Intelligence Committee folks and a fistful of others. Appointments are okay. I would like to run for a political office. Again, it's like I don't want to miss out on these formidable years of my kid.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
1 and 5.
Oh my God!
And I know,
those are great years.
I know how I'm watching a friend of Marissa Sweeney right now doing her campaign, and she has no kids, and it's still a grueling pace. She has her own business, she's married, and so I give her a lot of credit because it's a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as much as I want to do it, I've still got 40 years left. I could try later. Although I think the appeal, if I ran for anything now, people would find the appeal of being 43 and a tail end Gen Xer would be probably very beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
But again,
I feel like there's been a national push to get younger and younger in politics, right? I mean,
Yes.
Getting away from
what do we want? National health care. What did we get? A ban on TikTok.
That's right.
Okay? Like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We need younger folks in politics for a litany of reasons.
What attracts you about being appointed to or being in politics? What is it that attracts you specifically?
The greater good. I could do more for more.
Do you think so? So you think you could do more as a politician than as a private sector helping in the next catastrophe or the next big event that happens in the United States?
There's something about if I was to an elected office, right? Whatever office that would be, I would be beholden to those constituents that put me there.
Yeah.
My company is still going to persist, whether I'm at the helm or not.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still going to respond to emergencies and catastrophes,
Good point.
whether I'm there or not. That's their job. That's why we are in business.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fully confident in the folks that we have that if I were to ever step aside for a while, that they will carry on just fine.
Mm.
That's what we've trained them for. That's what they're disciplined to do, and they're very good at what they do. But there's certain responsibilities and accountabilities that I've never had before, and I would like to try it if given the opportunity. Now, do I actually have got the chutzpah to run a campaign? Probably. Do I want to miss out on bedtime with my kids? Not really. It's hard enough when I'm on travel in the first place.
Yeah.
And I don't want to stick my wife with anything I mean, it's already chaotic having 2 kids and 2 jobs.
Yeah.
And so let's not upset the apple cart. So for the moment, as much as I would like to do it, I think a healthy case of rectal glaucoma, like I can't see my ass doing it right now, is adequate. But again, the deal we have is if I get tapped by an administration or the next governor, whomever it might be, to support, of course I'm going to. It's, because an opportunity like that only comes along so many times.
To serve the greater good. It seems like a lot of what you talk about really, for me, touches on leadership.
Yep.
And it sounds like, I think you were mentioning your former boss and how you admired his leadership. If I was to talk to some of the guys that work for you, what do you think some of the things they would say about your leadership style?
He's a nut. He's a nut and he never puts his damn phone down. I'm still firing out messages and Teams and emails at all hours because that's when thoughts are.
Yeah. How's your sleep?
I have 2 kids. It's awful. For anybody who's listening who has children, they're all going, "Oh my God, yes." We have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
The 1-year-old is teething. He's got 6 at the moment, and the 5-year-old is in those formidable. It's pre-K 3, and he's got not night terrors but bad dreams, and so my wife and I are like constantly rotating who gets up with what. So sleep's crap.
Yeah.
Put weight back on. Now I got to start losing it again. But the leadership aspect of it. Again, I started the company to be somewhat selfish.
Yeah.
I want to work for myself and do things my way.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've become very important at work to my own detriment. God damn it. But I'm certain that at least some of my staff, the ones who know me well, Jose's been with us for almost 15 years.
Okay.
Kwan, our IT and program coordinator, she's been with us over a decade. Becky, our admin, HR, FSO, she's only been with us for a few years, but I've known her for 25.
Mm.
Mark, my controller, is my father-in-law. So he's known me for a decade.
Yeah.
And he works here voluntarily.
That's
now,
awesome.
the irony is he cuts himself a check.
Yeah.
It's do I cut you the check or do you cut yourself a check? He cuts me a check.
Yeah.
Without putting words in people's mouths, I would imagine that these folks have stayed here because of the way I do things.
Mm.
Now, to be perfectly honest, my way of doing things doesn't work for everybody.
Of course.
We are a very independent, self-reliant, self-disciplined kind of firm. We've had people where that doesn't work for them. And I don't micromanage. And if I need to micromanage, then I can't have you working here.
Yeah, because you got to focus on other things.
Really and truly.
Yeah.
And so as long as the work is done and the customer is happy, if you want to do it at 2 a.m. listening to Iron Maiden, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah.
I think my staff, depending on which ones you ask, but a lot of the new hires don't know me terribly well because they're on station all the time, and we've deliberately set we used to be a very flat disc. Now we're much more hierarchical where I need a separation because I can't be there for everybody like I used to be.
Yeah.
The ones that don't know me well enough would probably just say, he's fine, he writes me a check, he doesn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that I engage with at the director, the executive director, lieutenant level would probably say that they're glad to be here because they believe in what we're doing and they trust my judgment and trust my leadership. We've had rough times. We've had very rough times.
Yeah.
But they didn't leave. They stuck it out and stuck through and are still here and are able to see it on the other side. We've had some people leave who it didn't work for them, and that happens.
Of course.
You can't take it personally. This kind of arrangement's not for everybody. But I believe that my leadership, seeing where the world was going 20 years ago, pretty much where it is now, has allowed us to be the kind of firm that we are.
Innovative.
Really and truly.
Yeah.
I mean, I use Jose as a great example. He's been here for almost 15 years. I see Jose once a year, maybe, when he comes up from Florida. I don't need to worry about what Jose's doing.
Yeah. That speaks to your leadership, and that speaks to the amount of experience that you have. I mean, 20 plus years in this world. I think they look to you for a lot of guidance, and it shows. I mean, just in all the knowledge you've dropped on this podcast so far, I can see it. What do you think? 5-10 years from now, what do you think Nomadics looks like?
I mean, holy Christ. Well, there's a few different things that, because the 5-year plan changes all the time, we've had to have that existential conversation internally. Where does the firm go from here?
Acquisition?
Now that we're 20. Well, I mean, a bunch of different things have come to the table. First and foremost, the first question was, do you leave the firm to the boys? No, my eldest is going to be 5. I'm not doing this for another 30 years. And that's if he wants to do defense work in the first place.
Right.
So so that's not going to happen. We looked into doing an ESOP, but ESOP doesn't work for our structure the way it was set up. So we couldn't do that. And we've been approached for acquisition a number of times, both by private equity and larger firms. But, the conditions, and not that we've even taken them far down the line, just some of the conditions that we've been presented with for an acquisition don't work for me or don't work for us or don't work for what the long-term plans are, or even the short-term plans. And so, it could still happen, I suppose, but the direction that we are likely to go in, which we've been doing for over a year now, is, going public. And I don't know what that IPO is going to look like or how it's going to function. We're still at least 6 months away. But that is more likely than not the direction we're going to go in, because as a small firm, 20 years old, well positioned in the defense and government industries, the sky really is the limit for us. And so if we do it right, we can do it well. And that's probably where things are going to go. Now, me personally, 5 to 10 years, my wife is going to retire. The boys will be looking at college. No, well, the little one won't be. He's, oh my God, I'm in my 60s.
More like 15 years.
Oh my God. But still, we'll be staring down my wife's retirement.
Yeah.
And do I really want to go to work every day? Well, she's retired. Will she continue working on until I retire? Not sure. So, a lot of that's going to depend on how the company does now, year after year after year after year. And so like I said, the likelihood of going public is very strong because that's been the best route that's been presented to us. Given the work that we're doing, given the debt load that we've got, given the direction and the trajectory, given the current administration, and given the gubernatorial, that'll depend on what we do. Will depend on who wins the governor's chair here. And so we're not entirely sure where 10 years are from now. I have no doubt that we'll still be here in one iteration or another.
Yeah.
It's just what will we look like then?
Yeah.
Will depend a lot of what we do now.
Yeah.
And again, we could have this conversation 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you told me 10 years ago that we would be doing this kind of work in the defense sector,
you'd be like,
no, absolutely not. I have a Ph.D. in environmental science and management.
Right.
I'm not a weapons expert. And now here I am 13 years later, an unmanned combat subject matter expert in system safety engineering.
It's fascinating. That's a fascinating trajectory. Tell the audience, Nick, where they can find you if they want to get a hold of you, if they've gotten some nuggets here today from our conversation. And
easy. Nomadics.com. We're not the towel people. We're not the backpack people. We're not the HVAC people. It's easy. November, Oscar, Mike, Alpha, Delta, India, Charlie, Sierra, nomadics.com. Go on the website, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Nicholas M. D'Ambrosio. I don't even know what the hell it is.
That's it.
Yeah.
Ph.D., GISP.
Oh my God.
It's on there.
I'm still in disbelief. Like I had lunch with the director of my doctoral program. He still busts my chops. I believe to this day he's going to come snatch it off my wall.
It's imposter syndrome, right?
Oh my! All the time,
Yeah.
Absolutely all the time, and he laughs. And I'm giving a lecture for him at Stevens in this coming semester. I'm like, you
nice.
sure? He's like, yeah. And we're sponsoring. And it's like, I don't particularly think I'm a terribly smart person. It's just,
I disagree, especially after our conversation today. I think it was enlightening, informative, and I think you're doing important work. So, thank you for.
I believe the audience with a final thought. Anybody who's thinking about starting a business, a couple very important pieces to think about. But my first bit of advice is, if you're thinking about starting a business, do it now. Right this second.
Don't wait.
Don't wait. Get off the phone. Get off the couch. Go register it right this second. Pay the $75 and just have it sitting there. That's what I did. I had it sitting there for years before I actually went into it. That way, in the back of my mind, it was always there. And then the second part of it is, if you are in this current climate, in this current economy, if you're in a job, even if you hate it, but you have a job that is secure enough, stay where you are. Now's not the time to be found unemployed without benefits, et cetera, but have your business in the background.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do it part-time, knock yourself out. It gives you something else. In the event that something changes, in your primary source of employment. I can't stress that enough. I've had friends come to me, Nick, I'm going to leave my job, start a business. Don't do that. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Start your business. And if it's successful,
Then you leave
your job.
Don't do it the other way around.
Don't do it the other way around. Well, what did you do? I got laid off, but my business was already well underway by the time that happened. So when I saw the writing on the walls, I spent the time to develop it.
Mm.
The younger you are, the better off you'll be.
Yeah.
If you like me, have a marriage, children, mortgage, don't do it now.
That's not the time to jump ship.
No. Don't go back to school. Focus on the family. Do what you need to do the family thing. All this stuff should have been done by now.
Yeah.
If you're in your 40s and you haven't gone back to school, you haven't started your business, you need to seriously consider the ramifications of there's only 24 hours in a day. What kind of dedication can you put forth to the things that need your attention?
That's so true. And, spoken from experience. So I think that's great feedback for anyone looking to start a business. Nick, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time today. Learn a lot. And we'll see you on another episode of the Flexwork Podcast. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.